Heavens. It is the summer of 2077. This is the Arctic. But something is different. Far above the Arctic Circle, something extraordinary is happening. A landscape defined by cold for thousands of years. The change did not begin with a forest or a great field of green. It began quietly, a few plants. As the ice retreated, it exposed land that had been hidden for generations. And wherever the growing seasons, warmer seasons lasted longer, snow disappeared earlier, autumn arrived later, and every adimbertus. At first, scientists thought the changes were local. Then the satellites looked down, what appeared small from the ground. From Greenland to northern Canada, from Scandinavia to Siberia, the frozen north was becoming greener. Then came the summer of 2077. Across parts of the far north, the transformation became visions. For the people studying it, this was more than an unusual summer. It was a glimpse of a different Arctic.
From a distance, the new Arctic looked beautiful. But beautiful did not mean harmless.
Beneath the green surface was something much older. Arctic permafrost had stored frozen organic material for centuries. The Arctic was not simply becoming warmer. In some places, the ground itself was changing. The flowers told one story above the ground. The soil told another. As frozen organic material thawed, microbes. Plants were not the only life moving north. Wherever vegetation expanded, animals followed. But every new opportunity created new competition. As some species expanded northward,
The change was not only about flowers. Across warmer parts of the tundra, shrubs were growing.
A white Arctic reflects much of the sun's energy. A darker landscape absorbs more of it. As more plants could mean more food, more insects, more herbivores, more predators. As the Arctic changed, human attention moved north as well. Scientists came first and taprets. For most of human history, the far north was one of the hardest environments on Earth to inhabit. By 2077, the changing Arctic was opening doors that had once been locked by ice. But wherever humans sought for centuries, Arctic sea ice restricted movement across much of the far north. But longer ice-free seasons could change that. Estimates. A navigable Arctic could shorten some journeys between major markets, distances that once forced ships far into. As ice retreated from some landscapes, it exposed geology that had been difficult to reach. To some, a more accessible Arctic could intensify competition for minerals, energy, and territory. The same transformations. The Great Bloom was not only a story about land. Rivers carried more meltwater toward the sea. Coastlands races. As water temperatures and ice conditions changed, the ranges of marine species could shift as well. Ice does something vegetation and dark ocean cannot. It reflects sunlight. When bright ice, the Arctic may feel distant from most of humanity, but it is connected to the rest of the planet through the atmosphere, ocean.
The Great Arctic Bloom of 2077 would be remembered for its beauty. But
ice stood beside veges impossible to miss, existing at the same time. By late summer, the contrast was impossible to miss. Ice that had shaped this landscape now stood.
Ice is more than frozen water. Layer by layer, it preserves traces of the atmosphere that existed long before us. The Arctic has never been completely static. Across Earth's history, climates shifted, glaciers exodus. For people who already called the far north home, the changing Arctic was not a distant scientific projection. Still it is. A warmer Arctic would not simply make the north easier to inhabit. Thawing ground could damage the very infrastructure.
Some Arctic coastlines face greater erosion. This transforms not only what grows on the land,
In the far north, Even a small change in seasonal timings, earlier spring, matter. Eventually, the Arctic summer still ended. Flowers faded. Migratory animals began moving south. Frost returned to the tundra.
Scientists remembered.
Then the sun returned. Snow began retreating. What if 2077 was the beginning? The following year, the scientists returned. And almost immediately, they saw something turning earlier.
One extraordinary summer could be weather. Repeated changes across many seasons and many regions would mean something more.
Farther south, another boundary was shifting. The tree line. In suitable places, warmer. From the ground, these changes could seem small. From above, they could alter the color of entire landscapes. The transformation could reinforce itself. Less snow and ice expose darker surfaces. Darker surfaces can For some species, a greener north could create new opportunities. For others, the disappearance of cold.
Some of the coldest regions could remain refuges for far longer. Islands, mountains, and the highest. Technology could help scientists monitor ecosystems, protect sensitive habitats, and reduce some local damage.
The Arctic of the late 21st century is not a single predetermined destination. How far these changes go would depend.
For Elena, the most difficult part was not documenting what had disappeared. It was realizing that
Every measurement collected here became part of something much larger. Soil temperatures, vegetation, wildlife, ice, carbon. By the late 21st century, no major environmental change exists in isolation. Satellites watched from above. Sensors listened from the ocean.
A child born during the Great Bloom might grow up resembling this landscape differently. Every generation learns what normal looks like from the world around it. When landscapes change gradually,
by 2090, some landscapes could look increasingly different from those Elena first studied. Not transformed.
Years later, Elena returned. She returned to where she documented one of the first flowers. The marker was still there.
Climate change is often described through numbers, fractions of degrees, percentages, trends, and by 2100, there may be no single image that defines the Arctic. Some places could remain dense. A greener Arctic would not automatically mean a healthier Arctic. New vegetation could support life. In 2077, the flowers seemed to be the story. Decades later, we might understand the year 2100 would not mark the end of the story. Climate systems do not obey the boundaries of our calendars. By the early 22nd century, some Arctic landscapes could support vegetation communities unlike those remembered in 2077. Farther south, the boundary between forest and tundra could continue moving. Human geography could move as well. Communities might expand around new transportation routes, research centers, and northern industries. Longer growing seasons could create new agricultural possibilities in selected northern regions, but warmer temperatures alone would not create fertile farmland. By then, ice collected during Elena's lifetime could belong to an environmental archive, a physical. For a child born in this century, the Arctic of 2077 might seem almost mythical, a place remote. By the middle of the 22nd century, there might no longer be one Arctic experience. Decades after the Great Bloom, scientists might still return to this place. Not because one flower changed. Earth has never stopped changing. Mountains rise, oceans move, species migrate. From space, there would be no line marking where the old Arctic ended and the new one began. No part of Earth's climate exists alone. The Arctic exchanges heat with the atmosphere. Its oceans connect with waters thousands of kilometers away. The Arctic would not be the only place adapting. By the 22nd century, communities everywhere could be responding to a climate-shaped guidance. Future generations may understand Earth with a precision impossible today. Satellites could measure forest tree by tree. There is no single photograph of the future waiting for us. There are possibilities, some warmer, some greener. Long after the Great Bloom, Elena's measurements would still matter. Not because she knew exactly what the Arctic would become.
One researcher leaves, another arrives. The instruments change, the technology improves.
A flower can grow in days. A glacier can take thousands of years to form.
In 2077, people looked north and saw flowers where they did not expect them. The image was beautiful enough to capture the world's attention.
Perhaps the great Arctic bloom will never happen exactly as we imagined it.
A century after the Great Bloom, almost everyone who witnessed summer of 2077 would be gone. The instruments would change. The scientists would change. But some locations could be measured for generations. A handful of soil can preserve a surprising amount of history. Carbon, seeds, microorganisms. Some adapt, some exploit new opportunities. Evolution and behavior can produce remarkable resilience, but resilience has limits. Other species might retreat toward the coldest places that remain. Higher mountains, northern islands, persistent ice. Human settlement could expand as well. New routes, new industries, and new technologies might support larger communities in the north. Even in a much warmer future, the Arctic would not simply turn green everywhere. Elevation matters, soil.
A summer studied by students who know its landscapes, even while living inside the world that followed.
Before, during, after, 3 landscapes occupying the same coordinates, separated only by time. This is how planetary change often happens. It began, for us, with a flower. Something small enough to hold between 2 fingers.
By 2200, the summer of 2077 would belong to consequences could still other age.
Glaciers shape landscapes even as they retreat. Their meltwater moves sediment. Rivers change courses. Greening would have boundaries. Trees might move into some northern landscapes, but temperature is only one requirement for a forest. Centuries after warming began, one question could remain critical. What happens to the carbon once locked inside frozen ground? Vegetation can absorb carbon as it grows. A greener summer would not erase the polar night. Winter would still return. Temperatures would still fall. Then, as it always had, the sun returned. Climate can alter the conditions of a season. For months, much of the landscape appears lifeless. But beneath the snow, roots survive. More than a century after 2077, the Arctic might bloom again. But this would no longer be the same bloom. Different plants, different timing. A single photograph captures a moment. A photograph repeated from the same place for generations captures something else. Direction.
Something new will always be waiting to grow. What will it be?